What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dig It podcast. I'm your host, Drew Walsh, and today we're back with another Hot Corner segment. This is the second episode. We're going to dive deep into all things infield play. And last week we talked about, an approach to infield play, the mindset of infield play, and it was awesome. I got a lot of great responses from people and feedback on that. Thank you for your time. Today, we got the panel back, and we're going to dive deep in just the fielding of a ground ball, simply, and then we'll break it down layer by layer from pre-fielding actions, which we call. We like to break fielding into pre- and post-fielding, which pre-fielding could be anything from, our pre-pitch setup, our angles, hop recognition, our glove presentation, where we go with the ball next, okay? So today, we're going to dive into the fielding of a ground baseball, and let's just start with, like when a kid starts to talk to you about like, hey, I get stuck on this ball, I have trouble with this ball, say the ball straight up. Like, what do you guys start to dive in with them when the ball's hit straight at them and they're expressing that they're having a tough time getting a good read on the ball, they feel flat-footed?
I'll kick us off. I think if you're going to break it down simply, you have to think about what you need to do, and let's just talk about catching the ball before we do, transfers or throwing, but just catching the ball. I think the goal would be to put the glove in the path of the baseball, right? I mean, as simply as you could put it, present the glove in the path of the baseball that it's going to go, right? I think that's our goal. How do we get there? I think the next thing you think about is, okay, how do I judge when the ball is going to get to me? And how do I meet it at a certain place? I think if you're thinking about those three things, that's what you have to dive into when you're teaching somebody how to catch a ground ball. And obviously, I mean, it's been said millions of times before, but to really judge the speed of something, you can't look at it head on. You have to see the side of it. All right. So how do we do that efficiently and effectively? I think there's a lot of different ways to go about that, but when you break it down, I'll let the other guys jump in on it too. The simple part is, how do I meet the baseball at the right time to catch it, get my glove in line of the ball where the path is going, and how do I do that efficiently? I think that's the simple part of catching a ground ball.
So to that point, where is a good place to receive that baseball within your frame, within your right-left catch? We'll say a routine ground ball. You present that, you get your palm on the line, right? And sometimes coaches will express the base of your index finger is a good place to receive that ball. Anybody disagree there? On a routine ground ball, it's a good spot to have it. So present the eye of the glove, we'll call that, to the ball, right? Another way to say the same thing you just said. Where's a good spot to receive that baseball within your right-left foot?
For me, and how I express it to my guys here, it's between your midline, your belly button, however you want to class, and your left eye, if you're a left-handed fielder. Right eye, if you're a right-handed fielder. Okay, you want to, once you start crossing that midline with the glove, you start to run into a lot of issues. Footwork is important on it. And there's a couple of drills that I like to do that can help with it and help identify it and help expose players, because a lot of guys, they're taught a certain way growing up and that's all they're comfortable with, and they don't know that it could be detrimental on a fast-paced ball or a good runner. You got to get your feet underneath you, but there's a lot of different ways to combat that. But for me, from your midline to the eye of your glove side.
Awesome. So we want to receive that baseball in either the center or left of center of our bodies for a right-handed thrower. And then where do we want that weight distribution to be, right? Like, think about hitting. A lot of coaches talk about like 60-40, 70-30. Where do we want that weight to be at right-left catch?
At the actual catch? Because, I mean,
it's a still shot. Yeah. But it's important because I see so many youth infielders get into that right-left catch too early. And not only is there weight on their left hip, but now their hands are presented to their right foot. and it's just it starts to cause a lot of chaos in their transfer and throwing pathway. So like, are we on the same page that we go right, left catch and we want to hold that backside hip for a brief second so we can react to a bad hop?
Yeah, when I would teach guys, I would tell them to wait in the middle. Because I think once you put weight on, now what you do and what you say to do are usually two different things. Usually teach to how somebody's going to react to it. So if I tell a guy I want 60-40 backside,
Sure.
that might not look good. If I tell him I want more weight on the front side, he's going to be out of whack. If I tell a guy 50-50, that probably feels a little bit better. So that's how I teach it. I tell the guys I want weight right in the middle, but your weight's shifting the whole time. For me, the weight's shifting. You're never stagnant when you're feeling the ground ball, going, through towards first base.
100%. We never want to be flat-footed. It's energy and motion stays in motion. But like, just if you guys could visualize what coach is saying is like, everyone, you got a coach who's in front of you. You don't want to be stuck on your right hip. You don't want to be stuck on your left hip. You want to be free and easy through your lower half, the ability to transfer weight towards your direction. You guys want to weigh in on the guy, coach?
Yeah. So left to center is where I really like it. I always go and explain it to the young kids I work with. Actually, to all the kids, we're like, they always go and hear their parents in the stands or whatnot, have soft hands, have soft hands. And it's like, okay, so to me to have soft, good hands, it has to be in a nice and relaxed place. So when you guys are walking around at school, where are your hands at? By your sides, right? So if you're going to be walking and then you put your hands straight out, nice and relaxed, straight out, where is that on your body? Okay, it's going to be like right underneath your left eyeball, left center. So there I'm able to receive the ball with my hands in a nice and relaxed spot. And then going and weighing in on the right left field, everything is rhythm and timing. So what I do see some kids get to those when they go to the right left, just like you said, they get there too early and they end up drifting through to where when they're trying to field that ground ball, their body's drifting through, almost like, I always like to try and explain it in a way where they get it, because a lot of kids hit a ton. It's like, okay, so when you guys are fighting to be on time with your stride, whatever stride that it is that you have. Now, are you going to take your stride and drift to the front side and have anything on it? If you guys drift to that front side too much, like kind of, and it doesn't get exposed as much on the smaller field. But once you get to the big field, if you're drifting to that front side on your right, left, so to that left foot, you're not going to have anything in that backside to drive through with your feet and get your feet going towards your target and your feet right under your body.
Coach Turner?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said up to this point. The biggest thing that helped me in my career and that I feel like has worked with some of the guys I've coached in terms of setup with your lower body is understanding that your left toe needs to be up in the air through the catch. So I feel like just understanding I got to have the weight enough on my right side to where I can have kind of like my left heel on the ground. If that left toe or the front of that left foot goes down too early, you're stuck and you can't get into a no step or really a two-step pattern. Everything kind of becomes a four-step pattern. So if you want to play free and play smooth, you have to understand that the timing of the catch and when the ball hits the glove, that funnel is synced up with your left toe going down. And so just letting them be an athlete and kind of find what that feels like, but get into a position where we do like some stagnant drills in our dailies and our warm-ups where they just kind of start there with their heel on the ground and maybe they have a partner push them, or they'll just visualize. I always say, pretend like there's kind of like a lasso around your waist. And as you funnel, somebody's yanking you forward and you're driving through that toe, kind of going down into the ground like a gas pedal.
Gas pedal. Yes. I was just going to say, a lot of kids could visualize that really well. Like, hey, how does a car go? Gas pedal. Okay, boom, toe down. To your point, the rocker step, gas pedal, whatever you want to call it, I think plays for all ages. It's rhythmic. It's momentum. It's direction. It's timing. All those things. And also to that point, like if you want to, when you get to your right left catch, if you keep that toe up, what's driving into the earth on your left side? Your heel. Right. So if you can have that left heel dive into the earth and pull to your right toe, I think you get a lot more out of your front side. Like if you'll say the right side is your engine one, like your back hip to push through the ball, I think that front heel could play as that pull engine, that push pull through the ball, especially for more mature infielders. That left heel digging down into the earth to a right toe, allows you to play a lot more of that lower half into the ball. Before we even get to that right left catch, just think, this has been coached probably to all of us. Like when we're arriving into that right left catch, we're identifying how to put our left palm on the lane of the ball, and we're taking our feet to the ball. Like posture wise, like we talked about it last week, level 3 standing, level 2 is where we move, level 1 is where we field. How many kids do you see come in like a helicopter and then just drop down? That alters everything, right? That disrupts all the timing and where your weight's going to transfer, where your hands present in relation to your feet. Also, instead of coming down like an airplane, right? So I just want to create that visual for like youth infielders. We don't want to be running in level 3, standing up, dropping down last second, and then expecting to be an elite infielder. We got to figure out how to come in a good athletic position, eyes stabilized, hands ready to present to that ball on time. So we're at right left catch. I love the rocker step. We're all on the same page about where to receive that ball. Now let's talk about receiving it. Okay, before we get to the funnel word, what type of glove presentation do we have? Like there's been so many kids that have been taught, this is more youth, right? Like a little more vertical presentation. It's so stiff. If you have your left palm out in front of you, reach up to the sky, right, and you're vertical, just feel all the tension in your left elbow, left shoulder. That's the last thing we want. So for us, or for you guys, I'm sorry, what do you guys tell your guys about glove presentation, about tilt timing? For us, like we don't like to go vertical, right? Because then you alter where that glove could present, the line it could present to. We're not going to go horizontal like this because I can't see the ball unless it's glove side, right? Going to my left. We just kind of talk about shaking hands with the ball. Like think about fingertips down to the earth, shaking hands with the ball, and then on a routine ground ball, making sure that right wrist is there to receive that ball as soon as it hits your left palm.
Yeah, so I like to shake the hand, especially for the young kids. It gives them that, thought process of like, oh, okay, I'm shaking the ball's hand. With the older kids, they like more of like the details. I was like, okay, like think about a clock. Like I like it about 2 o'clock, to where when we go and receive, it allows the hinges or the elbows to work out to where we're able to bring that ball to our power position.
What are some big inconsistencies you guys see? We obviously got guys who like to flip hands, slash hands, present late. Some guys come in horizontal, like wide, and gather center. Have you seen, like, we're not married to one way? I think we're all pretty flexible. Like, hey, if you're consistent on time and the ball is you're killing the ball where it needs to be killed, we're good with that. But we know that's not the case most of the time, right? Like, do we nip it in the butt, or is it like, hey, show me you could do it, prove me wrong, and then take it from there?
For us, I think you have to really, I think that matters on position too. So if we're talking about a shortstop, he's going to have to move more laterally than any other position. So there's times where that glove's going to be closer to the body as he's going for range to his right or to his left. If we do see him flipping really late, I think that has to be addressed, right? He doesn't have to be ultra early, but there has to be somewhere in the middle that he's presenting the glove in a way that's he's never going to be late. All right, we want to make sure that's never an issue. So shortstop, I think they have a little bit more latitude of what they can do. If we're talking about third base and then balls, how hot that corner is, and he's a flipper and it's real and it's perfect timing just to have a catch, that's something that we have to change. All right. One thing I'll do with guys, if I do see that, I'll just say, as soon as that ground ball's hit, they're taking fungo. As soon as that ground ball's hit, you got to present right away, and then follow your glove to the ball. And they'll do it for a few times. Then you give them a little slack to, okay, start a little later, and then you try to find that right happy medium for those guys. But yeah, I think that's something that the faster the game is, the faster the ball's hit to you, the more you'll get in trouble if you're a late flipper.
Because think about, like, listen, we all know LeBron James, we'd all agree, is a pretty good athlete, right? But if you take LeBron James and he can't dribble, how athletic is LeBron James on a basketball court at that point? not very athletic. He can't create for himself. He can't create for any. Same thing like the hands. If our hands aren't playing the way they need to be, it disrupts everything, right? Like there's no point in us being incredibly athletic if our hands don't play, because it's just going to cause so much chaos within the throwing pathway, the transfer, and really disrupt your timing. So it's something so simple for you guys. Like you're making something hard, a lot harder by presenting really late. And the coaches aren't trying to take away your timing mechanism. They're just trying to work on your timing. If that's your rhythm to flip and this, that, or the other, so be it. Just make sure your timing's good. I think that's when.
Think about when you're hitting, or everyone likes to hit in the cage. If you're in and out of the zone really quickly, that your timing has to be so perfect that everyone does it. Nobody teaches it. No one says get in and out of the zone really quickly and try to meet the ball at the exact right time. You want to have a longer swing so you have room for error. Same idea and concept on the fielding side.
100%. I love that. I was just actually talking to a kid yesterday about that. So, anything on that, guys, about glove presentation?
The only thing I would add on to that, I think that's all really good. Wagner, we call it the same thing. We call it the eye of the glove, the base of the index finger. We call it the kill zone as well. One thing I've noticed, if you're not accurate in that spot of the glove, like Perlo's talking about, late glove flips will sacrifice some accuracy and you might miss the ball entirely or just miss that kill zone. We call it rattle glove syndrome. The reason we call it the kill zone is because when the ball hits that spot, it stops. You could take it right out. If you miss that spot, it rattles around the glove, especially a third baseman, maybe a first baseman, guys with bigger gloves, and they just can't get it out. You see that a lot on transfers, especially with younger kids. And then the other thing I would add as far as glove presentation with backhands, we're not looking for the eye of the glove. We're not looking for that kill zone. If you find that spot on the glove, it's going to create a ramp and the ball is going to come right out of the glove. So with the backhand, you're presenting the fingertips. I always think of like my hand as a fork and you want it pointed right into the ground and the ball should go right into the fingertips. And the arm action works from there. But just the distinction, I think, is it's something we talk about. We talk about in our installs the beginning of the fall season, so we're all on the same page with our lingo. But we're looking for that kill zone or the eye of the glove on the forehand or the ball's right at you. And then backhand, we're looking for the fingertips and kind of having those fingers pointed straight into the ground with the glove.
Happy you brought up the backhand. Love that. And I think a cue for me that used to help is like when you're going through that routine backhand, we'll say, try and keep that left thumb inside the ball just to make sure just like your barrel staying inside, which it always does. But keeping that left thumb inside the baseball to allow that glove face to open, to allow margin for error. I remember back in the day, DP, we would talk about backhand presentation on a routine versus on the run and the horizontal versus vertical nature of that glove presentation. Now you think about like coming through a right-left catch on a backhand, is it going to be more horizontal than vertical presentation because of the angle of like you're coming through, or are we staying vertical on a routine backhand?
I think it depends how much you have to reach. If you're beating the ball to the spot with your right foot, so you're setting up, you're able to beat it. It has to be a backhand because it's your only option. I think you can go up and down vertical. I think you can do that. If you're reaching for it, it's a little bit outside your right foot or your left foot, whatever it's a reach. I think you can go diagonal. I don't think you'll ever go horizontal.
Sure. Truly.
But I think there is some diagonal because of the reach and how you got to get there.
Awesome. I think love that.
When we do the bare hand work to work on that backhand glove presentation, when DP was talking about vertical, I always tell them to use the ring finger and the middle finger. It's kind of like a good place to add or to aim for in the glove to keep it inside the thumb like you talked about. So kind of aim for there. And then I know we'll get more into the funnel later, but then as you funnel, you kind of go into like a thumbs up move to kind of get ready for the transfer. But I kind of tell them to aim for like the ring and the middle finger when they're doing like their bare hand drive work with the backhand presentation.
I love that. All right. Shall we? So what do you got on funnel, Coach Turner?
Yeah. So I think, I know we've talked about this a lot. I think people will die on a hill for either playing through or for funneling. And there's almost like there's two camps. And I think that entire disparity and argument is silly because there's two types of balls that you can get. And so everybody's right. Anybody who says you should always funnel or you should always play through, in my opinion, is wrong. You either get a chopper or a pick. And in those instances, you play through, or you get a routine ground ball. And in those instances where the ball is flat on the ground, you funnel it and you bring it to center. So I think that's kind of where I would start off. There's two actions. Obviously, there's a big umbrella, but at the most simplest form, there's two actions with your hands. You either go through it or you funnel it. And it depends on the type of ball you get. If it's flat, you funnel. If it's chopping or, throw from a catcher at a bag and you got to play through it, then we're going with a pick. And then from there, we could take off in a million different directions. But I think that's the most important distinction that I like to make with our players from day one is you have two options with your hands. You need to identify early what kind of ball you're getting, and then what kind of decision needs to be made with your hand action.
And listen, funnel, I'm always like, whatever works for the person in front of me, I'm always going to work towards that direction. I think the funnel is amazing for the repeatability. It's centered, it's rhythmic, right? Like we're going to know where to take the ball out to create a nice, short, efficient throwing slot. Where I've seen the funnel get expressed, in my opinion, in a negative way is if we could agree in a fast-paced game that we got to catch and redirect the ball to our right foot to throw. Like say we only have a two-step and we kill the ball, redirect it to our tight V or whatever it is, and then we throw with our right foot, like the timing of that. I see so many infielders go right, left catch, receive the ball, and then rip that baseball, rip their hands into their belly button while their eyes watch it get stuck there. That's my only thing. I love when an infielder receives a baseball midline, brings it midline, because that's how we're going to move efficiently with our feet, right? That's how we're going to be compact. I think where I step in with our infielders is I don't need them to take the ball and cradle it to their belly button with their eyes looking down. Like it's just, for me, it's an inefficient stop on the route towards first. So what we talk about is, boom, as soon as they kill that baseball, instead of funneling it, because for some reason that funnel, that cue it presents that action. So for me, we just talk about gathering, or centering the ball, right? So they'll receive the ball in the same spot. And then for them, it's almost like an action of elbow out. Like as soon as they receive that ball, their elbows go out, because if our front side has to get somewhere to where our target's going, right? So if we could just get them in a spot where they could throw the ball right away and they're still in the middle of their body, I think that's just going to open up more margin for error for them to be on time with their right foot. And I've seen the funnel, and this might just be a timing thing or a hand presentation thing, but like the funnel, I've seen it get deep to their feet. Like they receive the ball gets deep to their feet, and my feet are trying to they're trying everything they can do to get towards first base. But when my brain perceives my hands getting in the way of my feet, that's a cautionary sign for me to slow down or stand up to create space for my feet now. So I was the funnel king. In college, I freaking love the funnel. And I coached, you better funnel your butt off. But they're like, I'm okay to be like that. And I still might be wrong, but I'll die by that sword of saying, like, I think the funnel has great merit. I just want to make sure it's expressed the right way. So that's where I'm at with the funnel. I think it has a great concepts. It's just the execution of it is sometimes where I got to step in and be like, you don't have to take it to your belly button. That's where I'm at with it. What do you got?
Going and hopping in on that, I agree with Turner on the ground ball will tell us what we're going to do, right? I think like you said, with the younger kids, with the funk, and let's say that like the younger, there's a high school kid once who really good hands, but he would get caught, just like you said, funneling too early, where he gets in between his feet. But I think we can funnel still, but it's all about where the focus is on where we're going to bring the ball, right? So whether I push through and I bring it back to my center, so let's just say right below our chest, okay, center it, elbows out, good front side. I can funnel, but I need to make sure I'm bringing it directly to that same spot. So no matter whether I'm pushing through or I'm funneling, I want to be consistent with where I'm going to bring it to where I'm throwing from a consistent place. So because there are some people around here who are funnel everything. I grew up with a guy in high school who was push, and then I got to college, and then obviously you learn like both are fine. Like there's no right or wrong. It depends on what ball you get. But I think funnel is really good, and I've seen it work with the younger kids that I work with, where okay, we can funnel, that is fine, but we're still bringing it to the same spot. And what I've seen with that is when they take away the idea of bringing it into the belly instead of to our center, they don't suck in the hands as early, if that makes sense.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense. And
PP?
just like, I was gonna say, just to add
No,
to
you're
that,
good.
just like anything else, like the funnel does have to be taught properly and carefully and thoroughly, and it does have to be executed properly. So the two main reasons I was taught the funnel, and the two main reasons I like to teach it is it's the last step of the catch, so it softens the ball. You know, I think of like a wide receiver running across the slot. Like if I throw him a dart 10 yards out and he tries to come forward with his hands, that ball is going to clank off his hands. Same with like a quarterback under center. He funnels the snap, as if he tried to go forward at that snap, he's not catching that ball because he doesn't have soft hands. So when you're getting a ball in the infield hit 100 miles an hour on the ground, you need to soften that ball a little bit. Now, it doesn't have to always go deep in your belly button, but you do need to soften it. So it needs to be a slight negative move to soften your hand. So for me, it's the last step of the catch. And then Kai Correa talks about this a lot. He says that the funnel is the first step of the throw. So the two main reasons are to soften the hands and to also bring the ball to a repeatable throwing motion every single time. So I'm throwing from the same spot. So if you picture Tom Brady, after he fumbles that ball under center, he's got that ball 60 times a game in the same exact spot. So when it's time to throw, he can go because he knows where it is. So when I teach the funnel, and we're talking, it depends, there's 3 lanes of funnels, but when you're straight on, there's 2 hinges. You have the elbow hinge, which bends here, obviously, but then the one that gets neglected a lot, which leads to a lot of bad throwing patterns, is the wrist hinge. So if I don't hinge this wrist, all I'm really doing now, I think I'm funneling, but I'm just deflecting the ball this way behind me. So I'm not actually softening the ball, and then the ball's now lagging behind me, and I'm not throwing from a strong position. So as my elbow goes, this wrist needs to bend. And now from the ball to like the left side of my body, like DP talked about, there's an imaginary line. And with those 2 hinges, I can keep the ball on that line. And then if I want to go a no step pattern, let's say this guy's moving, I don't have to go as far on that line. I can just soften funnel and go from there. If I'm going in a 4-step pattern, I have more time. The guy's not a burner down the line. I can bring it all the way in, take my gather and throw in a 4-step pattern. So some of the cues we use for that is like blow out the candle or kiss the baseball, you know, keeping the ball on that line with those 2 hinges. But then as far as staying synced up, the reason it's the first move in the throw is because, like we talked about earlier, the ball, your heel will be on the ground when the ball hits the glove right about. And then as that heel goes down, the ball's coming into your throwing position towards your funnel. They're synced up together. So that's what we call timing with the guys I work on. Is that toe going down as my funnel's coming in? And then by the time we talked about right, left, by the time we replace, that ball's out of my funnel and I'm in this position right here. So the issue I have with playing through the ball with your hands is now, as my toe goes down, my hands are now away from my body. So now when it's time to throw, my feet are ready to throw. I've replaced, but the ball's still making its way from out in front of me to back into a throwing position. So as the toe goes down, I'm funneling. And then as I replace, I'm getting to here. So the funnel for me syncs everything up the best possible way on a routine ground ball. Then, you know, have the depth of your funnel will come into play. And there's guys, and it's not a perfect system, but you still have to coach it and monitor it every day. There's guys I worked with for 2 years. So I'll be like, hey, this isn't hinging at all. And now when you go to throw, you're deflecting the ball behind you and everything's out of sync. So you still need to, you know, keep a close eye on it and rep. So we rep it every single day. We do our funnel series. But for me, that's the reason I like it the best, is it's the last step of the catch. It softens the hands, and it's the first step in the throw and syncing up with your gas pedal. And then when you replace, you're in a throwing position. So because I was taught to play through the ball with my hands my whole life. And I made so many throwing errors. You know, I was this good athlete, I had good hands, I had good feet. I'm like, why can't I throw the ball 150 feet on a line? Because nothing was in sync. I was playing through, and then when it was time to throw, my hands were way behind my feet and everything was just sailing. So after I learned the funnel and kind of made a point to emphasize every day, I can't remember really making a throwing error on a routine ground ball again after that, just because everything was synced up so much better. So that's why I really like to teach it. And that's where I feel like I've had success kind of through that thinking process, teaching it to younger guys.
I think we're saying the same thing, just it's in different, like we have to we kill the ball, bring it to midline to for all the reasons you said. And just like any skill, you got to monitor and teach it every day and make sure it's not becoming a deterrent to the goal, the overarching goal. But I never really got, maybe DP, there was one point in my career where I started to try and push through balls that were on the earth. For me, it's just like meeting force with force. Like it's just collisional. Like you're taking your hands through a hard ball. And it's like, I just don't know why I want my energy going towards where the ball's coming from or anywhere but to the middle of my body for the next part of my fielding process. So unless you're going to kill a hop, right? Like if you just, a ball ticks up on you and it gets up there and you got to go kill that short hop, then I think everything's got to gather towards midline. DP, anything on that?
Yeah. While you guys are talking, I'm trying to visualize different balls that are hit, right? Because this game, the reason why you take so many reps is because every ball's different, whether it's the pace, the surface, the runner, every ball is different. The ball that's hit really hard at, and I always picture shortstop and I, go from there, but the ball, like you're playing shortstop, it's a leadoff hitter, ball's hit really hard at you. Yeah, you're going to need some soft hands. You can't meet that with force. It's just not done. Go watch any Major League Baseball, go watch college, go watch high school. If it's caught correctly, there's some softness given, right? I think what words you use are important as well. When you say funnel, and I think a lot of even younger or little league coaches on up to high school and even in college, when you think of funnel, you think of ball, glove on the ground, funneling all the way up to your belly button. You think that's what I visualize when I hear funnel. So I don't like to use that word. I also don't like to use the word press because I think of like extended as far as I can through it. So I think the words you use matter because that's, right or wrong, it's what people think when they hear that stuff. Any ball with pace on it, you have to give a little bit. Just think of the physics. Any ball that's softer, I think you're allowed to push through a little bit. But as Turner said, you're not pushing through where you're all the way extended. You're not funneling where you're giving all the way through. It might be 2 inches on each side. It's not much, but it matters. It's a 2-inch funnel coming in. It's a 2-inch press going forward. It's not much. I really like teaching my guys to play with one hand. I do. I think it's really important in this game to be able to play with one hand. You should be able, at our level and high school level, you should be able to catch a pop-up with one hand, right? I mean, everyone says 2 hands and it's safer and it's more, but if you can't catch a pop-up with one hand, we have an issue. There's a lot of ground balls that you should be able to catch with one hand, and you have to learn how to catch with one hand. Now, we really can't funnel a whole lot with one hand. So I would question, different thoughts on this, but how many balls during a game are caught at shortstop? Say there's 10 ground balls to shortstop. How many of them are caught with one hand? How many are caught with 2 hands? How many are routine caught with 2 hands? Not caught to our left or to our right. A backhand's one hand, a forehand's one hand, ball coming in's one hand. Most of those, not all, but most of those are pressed through. You have to come because you're on the move. It's easier to go kill the hop than it is to funnel that last hop when you're on the move. So with us, we do teach both ways. You have to teach all aspects of this game. You have to give a little bit. I do think you have to press through a little bit, but I challenge you, if you play this game with one hand, it's really hard to funnel with one hand and then transfer through.
I love this. And I love the continuum that we're discussing because there's different paces of play. There's different skill levels of infielders we're talking about, and it's all perspective. But I think if a ball is hit straight at you, like with pace, I just think and with pace and then not shape. Like if there's not a lot of shape to it, I do think 2 hand is going to be the most efficient way to receive and then redirect that ball quicker to your right foot. think if the ball's on the earth traveling and we start to get into a one-hand flow, what I've seen with the youth infielders is disruption of our transfer to our right foot. Like as soon as they feel that ball with one hand and they lack the ability to get that ball from here to here to the right foot and ready to throw on a two-step pattern as consistently as two. Now that's something that I need to teach them better, or we need to work more on. But when I talk about like routine lanes straight up or a lane or two glove side with no shape, for me, I love two hands. I love them getting underneath the ball with that left palm, redirect, go, right? And they can throw from whatever slot they want. But obviously back, I do teach a lot of kids to see a shape and go. Like see ball down. If you see hops around, thigh, hip height, like go explore it, get downhill. And then more times than not, it's going to be one hand and you could always gather and go because you played offense, you closed the gap. If you watch the MLB players like Kim, got to watch him a lot because we're out in San Diego now. That dude, ball's hit down, he's gone. He vacates his position and he goes and sniffs that ball out with one hand, sets his feet, throws a 98 across the diamond. Like they're making these plays look so easy. And you hit a ball like that to some high schoolers and it's just chaos. Like we got to get these kids comfortable, ball down, go. Like it's okay to make a mistake being aggressive and go get that short hop or ball in the air where it can't take a bad hop. So I love the one hand because there's so more athleticism involved. But then I think there's like a time like straight at you, backspin on the earth. Like we could gather two hands and be really quick with that transfer and get uphill with our throw. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so I love this topic. And just to go back on Pearl, what you talked about, I think what I was talking about is like the most basic routine kind of ball you can get. And then that kind of gives you the foundation. And once we've mastered that, then we can kind of go out and be an artist and be creative. But it's like 1 + 1 = 2. Once you've mastered that, you can then get into calculus and keep building off of things like that. So that's
got a headache hearing about calculus.
Yeah, that's like the most basic fundamental kind of movement. And then Drew, I love that you brought that up because you kind of taught me that my first year at LIU, but I'm a very visual learner. So in Instructs, we kind of go over, like, I like to look at the infield as sort of a grid, and there's different lanes and zones. And I tell my guys all the time, the reason big league infielders don't make errors, everybody always likes to say, oh, they're just playing on a beautiful field. Well, it's not. It's because they create their own hops with their decisions that they make. They see the ball and they put themselves in a position to get the perfect hop every single time. So I have two topics to kind of break down here. So with the one hand, two hand thing, the most helpful visualization I ever got were the 6 fielding lanes. And then whichever lane you're in dictates the kind of play that you make. So if you can picture standing at shortstop, a ball all the way to your left, we're just going linear here, left to right, a ball all the way to your left, as far as you can reach, that's lane 1. And that's going to be a one-handed ball. And that's, like Pearl said, you might have to play through it depending on the speed. Sometimes maybe you'll funnel it into kind of like a spin move type play. That's one-handed all the way to your left. Lane 2 is something that's a little bit closer. You can kind of track down and get there with 2 hands and come around it. Lane 3 is right at you, the one that you were talking about, Drew, where we'll kind of intersect through the lane and go 2 hands again. And then lane 4, we can kind of get around it and come through with 2 hands. Lane 5 is your traditional backhand where you can kind of set up and play normally. And then lane 6 is the one-handed backhand, again, on the run where you kind of close and reaching for the ball. So for the listeners, that might have been a lot, but what we would do at Wagner's for a lot of days for warmups is I would just set up the machine and they would just move through each of the lanes to warm up. So you get 5 balls in lane 1 all the way through lane 6. And I would always say, learn, study, master, forget. So learn all these lanes, learn what you're supposed to do, master it. So, okay, that ball's there, that's one hand, that ball's here, that's 2 hand, that ball's there, that's one hand backhand, master it, and then forget about it. So now when you see that ball in the game, in that lane, you know exactly what to do. So that's a one-handed ball because it's in that lane, or that's a 2-handed ball because it's in that lane. And you can make the decision like that. And Drew, you taught me at LIU, I remember it was one of our first practices, from home to shortstop, there's 3 zones. Zone 1.
I got to give DP credit. Let me cut you off right there. DP taught me that one.
And then each zone dictates what you do. So if it's like closer to the catcher, that's zone 1, charge right away. Zone 2 is kind of like that middle ground where it's going to be routine footwork. And then zone 3 is maybe like a short hop to you where you might have to like drop step and kind of create some negative distance so you have more space for a long hop. So I think knowing those zones 1, 2, 3, and knowing those lanes 1 through 6, we talk about those a ton in installs, and we go over them every single day. And then I tell them to master it and then just forget about it. So when the game starts, you see the ball hitting that zone and that lane, and your muscle memory just takes over, and is it one hand, is it two hand, is it routine footwork, is it charge play footwork? And then that kind of just unlocks everything from there. And like the very first point you brought up at the beginning of the podcast is, why do a lot of infielders get stuck? It's because I think they're not familiar with those zones or lanes, and they don't play offense. Like you said, Kim, he sees zone 1 and he's on attack, as opposed to maybe, let's say, a lower level infielder sees zone 1 and waits, and now by the time he realizes what's going on, it's too late, and that guy's beat the ball out. So
Andrew, I got a question for you on the lanes.
Yep.
Does speed change what you do? The speed of the ball, the pace of the ball change what you would do within a lane?
Yeah, for sure. So those lanes are kind of like I was talking about the funnel. That's going to be like your bare basic, like left to right, average routine ground ball. And then from there, it'll change a little bit. So like lane 1, for example, all the way to your left, if that ball's smoked, maybe I got to go more kind of on an angle towards the outfield. Now maybe it becomes a spin play. If that ball's lane 1, but slow, now I got to come and press through, and maybe it's an on the run kind of charge play throw. But you can get creative for sure within those lanes. Maybe lane 2, it's smoked, it's kind of a normal drop step. So there's definitely creativity in there, but I think just allowing guys to understand like where kind of two hands becomes one hand, or where forehand becomes backhand, allows them to, at least it gives them kind of like an arena to then be creative, I guess, within, I would say.
Right.
So
Finish.
I was going to say, and then the last thing I forgot to touch on earlier is with the routine. So lane 5, we call it our routine backhand, where you can set up the right, left. If it's routine on the ground, we'll still funnel there, but it's not 2 hinges. We'll kill the wrist hinge. Now I'm just bending the elbow, and I tell them to go thumbs up. So as that toe goes down, the elbow's coming up, and the elbow goes back in the funnel, and the thumb kind of comes up. So now I'm in my transfer as I'm replacing. That's the lane 5 funnel. So the backhand funnel is a little different than the forehand in terms of, we just kill this hinge right there.
I do love that funnel. I do love the reverse funnel.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So just to build, I love the lanes. Like we talk about lanes all the time, and we create our own lanes, blah, blah, blah. But like, okay, if I'm looking at Andrew Turner right now from a above view, right? So I'm looking at lanes 3, 2, and 1 glove side, and then I'm looking at lanes 4, 5, 6 to my right. Okay, so those are lanes side to side. But I think now, if you look, I'm looking top down. If you start to think about the infielder X, right? Like think about like your front left hip going 45-degree and angle that way, front right hip, right, moving 45-degree of that hip, and then it also works backwards. That could be the speed barometer, right? Like if you got lane 2, but it's hit with less pace, that's your front left hip that you got to go get creative, whether it be on the run, 1 hand, 2 hand, it depends on the preference. Same thing going right and hard. Like if it's hit hard in lane 2, like you said, go create space, time for your eyes to see the ball. Same thing going to my right. So it's like, I almost want to make a grid of lanes and then make a little diagonal lines working for speed.
I love that. I think that makes perfect sense with the X.
I love that. Coach, is anything to weigh in there? Back to like the hand presentation. This is something that like started to, I've changed my perspective on how I coach things, but had an infielder from Texas, coaches Troy Tulowitzki. He's all right at baseball. And he comes back in winter and he's working on his hand pass stuff, right? And everything he does is pressing through. And I'm sitting there cringing, like, what the heck? This is such a talented infielder. Why is he killing his hands like this? Like he's pressing through everything. And we have a conversation. He expresses why. Like he's like, I don't need to be too soft. I don't need my hands to disrupt my feet. Blah blah blah. I'm like, all right, but like all your momentum, this and that. We're having a conversation. The thing that really was like eye opening to me is when we got into our ground balls. He never pressed through anything, right? He never went like this through a routine ground ball. All he did was kill and redirect. Like it was just a cue for him to stop that ball, like in its path where he wanted to. And I was like, that's not what he like. that's not what he really meant. Like there was a goal to what he was actually doing in his pre-fielding stuff, but it's not expressed like that. And I was like, crap, like that makes so much sense because so many youth get handcuffed by balls because they're trying to be too soft. And we've already discussed this, but like I think it was really neat how like in his dailies he was being a little more aggressive with like his little press through, but it didn't present in a game. It was just, if you can envision, boom, it was just out in front of his feet, in front of his body. I thought that was pretty neat. But I just wanted to share that just so like, you know, if it, for those listening, if you want to try that out and it helps, it's all about transfer. Whatever's going to help you transfer and make you a more efficient infielder, then so be it. Anybody have any, you know, little review or last want to weigh in on anything? I think we covered a lot in great detail. And I love that. We covered a lot.
I think you can we can talk quickly about transfer, the next part. I think a lot of people agree you want to transfer midline. How you get there, you know, with press or funneling through, transferring midline. I do think is important, and how your fielding errors or your throwing errors will go down with a better transfer and a better system. Andrew talked about Tom Brady always starting in the middle. Those quarterbacks always start in the middle because that's where they're comfortable. They know their mechanics from there. I think it's important that you do this in your daily throwing series. And I think translating as much of this that we're talking about over this podcast and the next few, transferring this into something that you do every single day, which is have a catch with someone. And I think the more you can do that, the easier it will be when you're doing it with on a ground ball or in a game, because you're doing it with practice and with intent. I know when when I was coaching you, Drew and Andrew, our throwing program was a drill. It's not getting your arm loose. You know, there's stuff to work on, where you to transfer, taking the ball out of your glove, all that stuff. I think it's how you receive the ball. Those are all parts of practice. And it's 10 minutes where you can either get better or you get worse. And you get better by having intent in what you do. And relating it to today is the transfer part of it, and where you start the ball every time you play catch. If you're doing that repeatedly, it becomes easier on catching a ground ball and putting that into play and throwing it to first base.
So as far as like the transfer goes, like if you think about it, we go right, left catch, okay? And then we center the ball to our midline, and then our feet replace. So there is, I'm a big replace guy. I think there's times for a crossover in certain instances, maybe going incredibly hard glove side. And if you do want to redirect your front side to first, that plays, or a backhand to redirect some momentum. But I'm a big replace guy. I think it gives you a good base. It's athletic. And also for this point, right? So you go right, left catch, you center it, and you replace your feet. So if I were to stop a still shot of you, Andrew, fielding a ground ball, at that point, your hands would be together and your feet would be together, right?
So yeah, exactly.
Right, left catch, center, replace. And at some point, my right foot goes to my left foot. And then right before my left foot gets the target, I should be hands middle still, right? So my feet are together, my hands are together. Now we can start to talk about what hands and feet timing really means. And for me, it's like, all right, my feet are together, my hands are together. I have the opportunity to separate them together. And I could be a really good, like you hear pull the bow, you hear pull the rubber band apart. Now I could be an elastic rhythmic thrower and engage my lower half from the ground up. If I could get to a point where I separate my hands and my feet, that's what good timing is to me. We glove tappers, a lot of people hate that stuff. If you understand why you're doing it, I think it could be very, very beneficial for an infielder who doesn't have rhythm and timing of their feet. Because when you glove tap, your feet are together, your hands are together, and then you pull them apart. And now you have an opportunity to go throw, right, when that rubber band is pulled apart with max tension. That's what we talk about a lot, like understanding where your feet are and where your right foot is specifically, and being ready to throw with that right foot.
Yeah, I love that topic. I think that's really well said. And knowing where your feet are, I was talking about earlier, kind of really changed my career in terms of me being able to make accurate throws. I was always aware of the right left, but the biggest cue that helped me was when I got to the Marlins. Our coordinator always said, get downhill. And what he meant by that was when you go right left, you don't want to be in a straight line, because if you're in a straight line, then the only thing you can do then is cross over with that right foot. And then when you cross over with that right foot, you're getting very tangled up and then throwing against your body. And there are times where it happens by nature, but he would say, get that left foot as far in front of the right foot as possible. So now when you replace, you're on a straight line towards the first base bag. So he wants your left toe. We talked about having your left toe up, is always pointing at your target. So you'll have in that right left fielding triangle, your feet will kind of be on a diagonal line. I have my players kind of draw that in the dirt, and then you're replacing your right foot towards the first base bag, as opposed to crossing over. Or some guys replace, but they're kind of swiveling, and now their direction's not really going towards first. So we want that straight line. We call that getting downhill. And that's going to change depending on where you're playing. So like I was third base, so I'm not going to get downhill on a double play ball, but I'm going to open up that left toe and point it towards the second base bag. So then I can drive through and replace with my momentum towards the second base bag. Or on the shortstop and I'm going infield in, that left foot's going to be really far in front, and it's going to be pointing towards the plate. So now I can drive in a straight line as opposed to having to go sideways and then towards home plate. So on a routine ground ball, we call it playing downhill, getting the left foot staggered so I can replace in a straight line. But then otherwise in the other plays, getting the front foot pointed towards where you want to go. And then if the only time it's the right foot is if you're the second baseman and you're turning two, then your right foot's going to be pointed at the second base bag as you kind of flip through that right foot. But it's the same concept. That front foot needs to be pointed in that direction to avoid, guys who want to replace, but if it's not downhill, then they'll swivel or they'll just try and cross over. And there are times when you have to cross over. If I'm playing third and it's infield in maybe, or I'm a little more in, and the ball's rocketed to me, and I don't have time to get downhill, I just field the ball and then cross over, and I have a little more time to kind of get untangled. But if I'm playing a deep third base, any chance I get, I want to try and get downhill so I can just replace towards first as opposed to replacing sideways and then getting to first base. So that was something that really helped me, was understanding that my left foot needs to be pointed towards where I'm going, so my replace actually takes me towards my target, and there's no wasted movement, entanglement, off throws, or anything like that.
So I just the right left catch, and then the getting downhill, we just talk about right to left to target, right to left to target, and the target changes depending upon where you are in the field and the context of the play. And you guys want to weigh in on that? Any thoughts? So I think we covered like the transfer and the timing of it, and that's why it's so important. That's why we dominate dailies, guys. Like, obviously, it's to create better hand-eye, obviously, but the ability to kill the ball and the brain to perceive where it is in your glove to then redirect it to the places we just mentioned. That's why we do it. So it transfers to that. So it's not just getting on your knees and throwing hands at a ball. A lot of kids do that, and it does aggravate me. It's something we take a lot of pride in. It's like, dude, do you think you're that good? You can't even do it on two knees right now, and you think it's gonna translate? And then you wonder why your throws are errant. Like, come on, like there's a bigger purpose, right? So we talk a lot about that, but any last thoughts on transfer? We good? I think that's awesome, right? And maybe next week we'll dive into a couple more drills, or get into more throwing, and we'll get into maybe a little more hop recognition on the run stuff. But that was freaking awesome. I can't wait to hear that back. I got notes right here. So again, thank you guys for your time. There's so much nuggets in that. Until next time, guys, you have a great day. I appreciate your time. Take care.